And I'm waiting for it to go on YouTube. I think we're live.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. It's still okay. There it goes on YouTube. I want to like get the sound off. But hello, everyone. I was trying to think there was some sort of like Jane Austen greeting, but I couldn't think of anything.
I think you just talk about the weather. Isn't that what Marianne's? No, the youngest daughter in Sense and Sensibility. She always talks too much, and they tell her that if she doesn't have anything nice to say, just talk about the weather. And then at the very end, you could tell she wants to say something really mean, so she just says, "Oh, the rain's cleared."
True. But hello, everyone. So if you couldn't tell from that, we're talking about Jane Austen today.
Yes. So exciting. So exciting.
And we'd love for you all to chat in the comments as well. So I see Michael's here. Hello.
Hello.
So I did like an Instagram poll. So I asked some questions on Instagram about Jane Austen. And then we're just going to kind of go to just talking.
I can talk about her for hours, so I'm ready.
I was telling Hudson though. Oh, Hudson, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh yeah. Hi, I'm Hudson, and I make YouTube videos as well as Angela Ann's. Not as good as hers. Hers have like a whole plot to them. I like binged all of your videos today because I didn't have Wi-Fi for a month. So I was watching them all. I'm like, she can stick to a point so well in every video. So they're amazing.
Thank you. Hudson's videos are also really amazing. So definitely go check them out. I remember like I was watching your videos for a bit before. I think we met in like Diane's stream.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, she's too cool. Like she would like not want me to reach out and talk to her.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny that you say that because you guys all met Diane on someone's stream, and I was there in the comments because Diane told me about it, and so I was there. I was like, oh my gosh, everyone in this whole live is so cool.
It's funny how that happens in life. I feel like people who you always think are like too cool are the people you vibe with the most.
Yeah, it's always the ones that I never make the effort with, and then I like am kicking myself because I'm like, what? Why did I get into my head too much for this?
Yeah. It was the best of times. It was the worst. Definitely the wrong offer.
I mean, I can also talk about him, but not as fondly. I love his books, but him as a person.
I have mixed feelings about his books.
It depends on the book.
True. There's a huge difference in his books.
Yeah, I love his plots. His prose, I can, yeah.
I don't know if I like his plots. His plots to me seem very cliche and a little bit hyper masculine at times. Or like just more like, I just feel like there's very traditional female roles. Like,
oh, 100%. But
have agency, but like, I guess maybe they're cliche because he did them. Yeah.
So when I read a book of an era, I like to see like, was this, I'm that person who reads up everything, like the behind the scenes of how this book was written. Because it's like, I remember I once showed a friend Monty Python, and they were like, this is all cliches. Like this has all been done before. And I'm like, yeah, but this is the birth of it. Like they came up with it. So I try when I read books from different eras to like make sure whether or not, because that does ruin it because everyone copies each other later on down the line.
Speaking of which, I feel like that's part of the issue a lot of people have with Jane Austen is like they don't understand the era she was writing in. So like they'll be like, oh, she wasn't that like radical of a thinker. But I'm like, do you not understand like when she was writing or like what else had been written?
Also, I feel like people don't understand the text because I took a whole course on Jane Austen. And I remember when I started taking the course, someone said, oh, she's just like the original Stephanie Meyers. And I was like, first of all, no. Jane Austen did not write romance, is now just published as romance. For that time, it was satire and a look on social norms, because a female protagonist, had to either die or be married at the end to be published.
Mm-hmm.
So she used the guise of romance because I know that Mansfield Park in particular is a story about slavery, or like a look at slavery, because obviously it's in England, not in America, but.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because like her last book that she wrote that she never got to finish, Sanditon, like one of the main characters was like a Black female who was like really pretty and like an heiress, which like for that time period would have been like super radical.
Yeah, she was, I mean, I love her. Great. I mean, I think I do. We don't know much about her, but still.
She was an INTJ.
Yes. I know that there's probably no way to prove that because they burned all her diaries and letters, but I hold on to that because out of all the INTJ authors, she's like one of the least problematic.
Yeah, so I was telling Hudson too before, I'm not going to say who wrote this comment, but I did like a reel and I mentioned Jane Austen in it, and this person like wrote a really mean comment against Jane Austen.
Let's hear it.
I agree with all of this except the part on Jane Austen. Personally, I do find Jane Austen to be not intellectually stimulating. That was weirdly worded. So I do find Jane Austen to be not intellectually stimulating. Every time I read her, I feel like I'm reading a girl's fanfic. And the thing is, I don't really think she did much for women. In fact, she probably repressed them more. And perpetuates stereotypes that women only really care about relationships and drama. Female writers like Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, Simone de Beauvoir. My French is not as good as my Spanish. Emma Goldman and Heloise, I feel like did so much more, especially Sor Juana, Heart, to show that women were capable of discussing things of greater importance. That women could be involved in politics, philosophy, war, things that were only thought to be for men. These women worked to make writing an equal platform for men and women, whereas I feel Jane Austen simply made a genre isolated only for women and therefore did not do anything genuinely progressive for female writers. But I personally am not attracted to literature about the noble class, as I feel that it doesn't represent the majority of women during that time. Women who wrote for the common woman speak with much more reason than Jane Austen.
I have a lot of points.
There's like so much to unpack there.
So those particular authors, I have not read their work, nor do I know when they were published.
I've read Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, and she's like a good writer, but like it's a very different style of writing. She was a nun in Mexico.
What?
In like the 1500s.
In the 1500s?
Like way before Jane Austen. And she wrote mostly religious poetry that had subtle things about like war and politics and women's rights in it. But it was all religious. So it was very like St. Augustine style or Bartolomé de las Casas style.
Okay, so that's around the era that the Puritans started making headway in taking over a lot of the Western world.
Mm-hmm.
In the 16th and 17th century. And that was when a lot of things regressed because the Elizabethan era was very, very feminist and LGBT friendly. And well, I think probably just lesbian and gay friendly, actually. I don't know about the other ones, to be fair.
Probably bi friendly, I would guess.
Oh, yeah, because they would make you marry the opposite so you could breed more kids, but you could have many lovers of the same. So there was all that going on. And then the Puritan thing happened, which regressed society. Also, England is very different from Mexico, and it's not like today's standards where social media connects us. You like only knew people within your own country. And as someone who lived a good chunk of their life in England, these villages are very, very small. Like you rarely leave your little village.
I think Sor Juana probably would have a little bit similar to Jane Austen because the Spanish were extremely repressive of women during that time period, and she faced a lot of backlash for what she wrote.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of why Jane Austen wrote in the genre she wrote in was because that was what it was acceptable. So like she could have gone like the Wollstonecraft route, but then not as many people would have read what she was writing. Whereas she was a larger audience of fiction. And Soy Juana, I think, is actually kind of similar because she started writing like evocative plays, but that was like the Mexican Inquisition was like, nah, that's not gonna happen. So then she wrote like poetry about religion and became a nun because she realized as a nun she could have her freedom. So I think that that's kind of similar. Like they both were kind of working in their genres and their time period. And Jane Austen also wasn't rich, so I don't know why they put it in the noble class.
She was I think she was in the third class tier. There's a real
class. Right?
Yeah, it would be like middle. It's like middle class, but because her father was, I don't know if they call them ministers or preachers in the Church of England, but because he was a religious leader, they were kind of on the lower end due to his position. If she wants a grittier Pride and Prejudice, then just read North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. But I don't think she would like the heavy religious tones within it of that era. There's a really good Jane Austen.
Is that
entry?
I typed in Jane Austen social classes.
Yeah, I think she would be in the working class because she or lower middle class. No, I think she's the lower end of lower middle class because she would be who's a good example within Jane Austen literature?
I always kind of saw her being similar to I don't want to say, I think after her dad died, a little bit similar to like Fanny in Mansfield Park, where she had to go live with a relative, like something like that, kind of.
Yeah, that's the one that I was kind of going for.
Not necessarily with the family in the poorer area.
Yeah, so I definitely just think it's because I remember the first time I read Jane Austen when I was 12. I thought it was a very like high class, noble romance. And it wasn't until I took the class and I read it while also learning what words meant back then. For example, back in the Regency period, terrific meant terrifying and horrific combined. But now we see it as this is great. So I think there's a lot of lost context when
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
But also, Michael, Emma is an incredible book. I think that is hilarious. I mean, the book is hilarious. Not that you've only read it is hilarious.
That's the first Jane Austen book I ever read.
Really? Oh my gosh. How did you feel about the new movie?
I like the aesthetics, but I'm not sure if I felt extremely passionate about the plot. But I thought the aesthetics were done well.
Yes, it felt like Wes Anderson made a Jane Austen. I loved everything except for I felt like it would have done better on a stage than in a film because they but they said they purposefully filmed it and acted it out as though it was a play. Yeah. Which I thought was an interesting choice, but it felt a little bit awkward at times because it wasn't on the stage.
Yeah. It was interesting. I don't know if I've ever actually been happy with an Emma adaptation. That's one I'm like, I just feel like the book was so much better than any adaptation I've seen. I like Clueless, but that's a very loose adaptation.
Oh, I was going to say Clueless is the best adaptation. Yeah, I mean, what they did to modernize it is incredible. But that was the year of really good modernization of old things, like 10 Things I Hate About You is Taming of the Shrew.
Oh, yeah. Huh. I don't think I've ever seen that, but I think those all would have been, I don't know why I saw Clueless.
They all came around the same time. I made my sister watch it recently, and she said that she liked it, but throughout the whole thing, she was like, oh, this is such a cliche. Oh, really? Like, this is all about this? And I'm like, okay, this was the 90s. This was very radical for the time. Hang in there.
As if.
I know. I actually did Cher's monologue of her realizing she's in love with her stepbrother for an audition in high school for a play. So
yeah, no, it's such a good movie. Some of my friends, I think it's because we weren't alive when it came out. So like even like when I watch it, I don't get all the references. And like so I think some of my friends don't like it as much. And I'm like, guys, it's so ironically funny. Like,
wait, when did it come out? Because I didn't see it till I was in high school. Oh, 95. So I was like 3 years old.
Yeah, so you probably saw it later too. Because there was like things that they would mention in it, like even to this day, like they mentioned something about like some war in like Bosnia, and I was like, I don't know what they're talking about, but okay.
I think because the 90s, I mean, the 90s had a lot of stuff going on that made bigger things happen in like 2001.
Anyways, writing violence here. Hello, and we are not talking about the 1990s, no matter what it might seem. We're talking about Jane Austen. So we were just talking about how we thought Clueless was the best adaptation of a Jane Austen, or not a Jane Austen novel. Whoa, of Emma.
I don't know what the best adaptation is of all Jane Austens.
I would say The Pride and Prejudice, 1996 of Colin Firth.
I'm torn. I think that one has the best Darcy, but
I felt like they did a good job of, because you can literally read from Pride and Prejudice at scenes.
Well, I actually did that in my Jane Austen class. We had to read a chapter and then watch a scene from the 2005 and a scene from the 90s one, and they were both equal, which is very weird. I know, but like one read it perfectly, like from the script, and the other one captured like the essence of what they were saying better, if that makes sense.
Because the 2005 one to me has always been very off.
Yeah, that's what everyone says, due to the fact that it's 2 hours and there were some interesting fashion choices.
It seems very romanticized in a patriarchal way to me.
I guess I felt like they captured the humor a bit better, because that was the thing. I felt like the 90s one, and I love the 90s one, don't get me wrong, like watch it every time it's raining outside. I feel like it was a bit more stiff. So like some costume designers did literally talking about which one is better. And the thing I love about the 2005 one is that it looks like they actually lived in those clothes, whereas the 90s one is like everything is very like different proper. Also, something that they did really well. Yeah, I don't like the script. Let me rephrase this. I don't like the script of 2005. I like the music and like the sets and how they the mise en scene is what made it more like the book than the 90s one.
So kind of like the context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the 90s one did everything else perfect. So
I'll agree with that. I think the aesthetic was better, but I think that I don't like the 2005 one, which I know is an unpopular opinion or controversial.
I feel like you're in the popular vote.
People my age love the 2005 one.
I think it's because when they grew up with. I didn't like the 2005 one until I took that Jane Austen class, and we like literally dissected every scene, which was a lot. But now I love them both equally for different reasons.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments which one you guys like more, if you've seen one or the other. For me, the 2005 one, I just feel like the female characters didn't have as much agency. Like I felt like it was really focused on the romance.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have a horror film.
Keira Knightley as Lizzie Bennet was not a great choice. That was a very male choice. And who they cast as Mr. Darcy, he was so ugly. That was also a male choice.
It's funny that you say that, because when that film came out, people believed the opposite.
That Keira Knightley was ugly and that guy was handsome?
Well, I just remember when the film came out, everyone around me was complaining that Keira Knightley wasn't pretty enough, which is baffling, I know, because she's gorgeous, but they said they made her look very homely. So I just remember people saying that, and then it wasn't until like 5 years later I heard someone say like Keira Knightley was too pretty for the role, and I was like, I mean, I did think she was I do think she's gorgeous, so I'm glad someone's finally like talking about that, but I definitely think it's like the area of the world you're in, probably.
Huh, that's so interesting. Yeah, because I always thought that she was too pretty. Like, I always liked how the Jennifer Eel from the 1990s version wasn't that attractive, yet she could get a super attractive guy. Because I feel like that was kind of the essence of Jane Austen. She took a lot of those tropes of like the really pretty girl and then not as the average guy and kind of flipped it. Or like she flipped like she did the reverse Bechdel test. Where she can't pass the reverse Bechdel test. There's never like two guys talking about something that's not a female.
Yeah, which is funny that you say that, because the 90s Lizzie is known as stunning. Like, her look is stunning in England, and that's where Masterpiece Theater was filmed.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So like I always thought she was like gorgeous because, yeah.
Huh. American versus British standards.
It 100% is so. Just like at least the part of Britain I'm from, they're more into like girls with like figures, whereas I feel in America they're into more like, I don't really want to talk about that because I think both are beautiful. It's like it's different forms of Hollywood.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Michael says there's a Penguin's Classic Deluxe Edition book that has all 7 Jane Austen novels.
Oh, I saw that.
That's cool. I think it's from Penguin Classics too. I have like all of Edith Wharton's novels in one binding.
Oh my gosh, it's kind of messy, but that's my like fancy collection of Jane Austen's.
Ooh. Most of my Jane Austen novels are at home, and usually I try to bring my fanciest Pride and Prejudice in English and Spanish, but I forgot my Spanish one. So I only have my English one, which is pretty, but I like my Spanish one more, actually.
Ooh. Oh, I really like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to see where it's from. I want to say it's like, it's just Barnes & Noble. The inside's fun, too.
Oh, that is fun. It's very, like 1930s.
Yeah.
Hold on. Here's my Persuasion. No, Northanger Abbey, which is my personal favorite Austen. I think it has photos, actually. But yeah, so yeah, what is your favorite Jane Austen? I think I already know yours, but
really quick, I was gonna do Writing Violet said the 05 version. But she thinks it's for non-book fans. I haven't seen any Emmas. I'm clearly helping the conversation. Yes.
You read it, though.
Yeah. I think my favorite is a tie. I really like Persuasion, and I really like Pride and Prejudice.
Okay. I've yet to read Persuasion because I have this rule. If I fall in love with a book and its author and they're dead, I have to wait like 5 years in between each book.
So is this the only one you have left?
Yeah. Because I wanted to wait until I was in my late 20s. I just felt like that was the time to read it. But that's the only reason why I haven't read it, because otherwise I would have read them all in 1 year. But I just don't like it when there's no more new books to read from an author. So
I just feel like Persuasion, it's very underrated, and I feel like it's a very soft novel.
Yeah, that was my mom. Sorry, what?
I don't know why I feel that way, but I do.
Persuasion is my mom's favorite. And she always wanted me to read it, but she was like, you should wait till your late 20s because it will like mean more. But she has the same rule as I do, where it's like, if the author's dead, then like you have to hold out, because not everyone's Mark Twain.
Yeah, that's such an interesting I like that. I don't know if I could do it. I don't think I would have the willpower, but I like the idea.
The goal is to just have a lot of 19th century favorite authors to choose from.
True. Yeah. Persuasion is writing Violet's fave too.
I hear it. Yeah.
Oh no, for a second I thought that was a Jane Austen book that she was holding in her photo, but I think it's a writing practice book.
I think it's I know what it is because someone just posted a review of it. Writing Genius, Story Genius, I think it is.
Oh. Huh. It's a cute profile picture.
I know. Also, it's such a cute name.
Yeah. But is your favorites Northanger Abbey, right?
Yes, which I know is the worst written. I know that, but I just love the essence of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I also remember my mom always my mom always said everyone has a Jane Austen character. There is one Jane Austen heroine for everyone. And in high school, I was very much a Catherine Morland, which is when I read it. I don't think I'm like her now, but that was very much me in high school. So I think that's why it has a special place in my heart, even though the adaptation does bother me.
Yeah, the adaptation wasn't great. I really like that one as a piece of satire against the Gothic literature movement of the time period.
Mm-hmm.
And I always see it kind of like her, even though I know the Bronte sisters came after Jane Austen, I kind of see it as her poking fun of authors like the Bronte sisters.
Well, the Bronte sisters hated her.
Yeah. And I don't think Jane Austen would have liked the Bronte sisters.
Yeah. It's also that thing of like, it was just completely different times. Like they're Victorian, she's Regency. Sorry, I like blank, which is crazy because all I look up is Regency clothes in my free time. Yeah, it was different time. I know that for Northanger Abbey, she was mainly making fun of Anne Radcliffe, but a lot of her books aren't published nowadays, which is really sad because I try to read every book that they talk about in Northanger Abbey.
Oh, wow.
But they're hard to find.
Yeah, because I thought they were all kind of obsolete. Or not like obsolete, but they were like hard to find nowadays. Or
yeah, which is so sad to think that what we see as a classic might be obsolete later on.
I think at least from how Jane Austen was making fun of it, and I'm in like an intellectual history course right now, which is interesting about like European intellectual history movements. But I think that those novels were probably not preserved because they were seen as like only for women or they weren't intellectually stimulating, which is I think kind of what she's making fun of a bit.
Well, yeah, because also she was obsessed with Gothic literature. That was her favorite thing to read. When
Really?
when she wrote Northanger Abbey, she was obsessed with Gothic literature, but she didn't know how to write it. So one thing she was good at was making people laugh. So that's why she went the satire route, which is now her books are not seen as satire. But that's why she did it, because Anne Radcliffe was her favorite author.
That's so interesting. I thought it was more like the dangers that would befall a young woman if she believed in the like toxic masculinity.
Well, in the beginning of the book, is it this one or is it my other Northanger Abbey? She like has a statement where because this came out right before she died, but she wrote it when she was 15 or 16. And that was when I don't think this one has it. But yeah, in one of my versions, it has a little letter that Jane Austen sent to the publisher to get it published. And about how like she really loved it at the time. It's no longer in, so no one's going to get half the jokes, but she still wanted to publish it.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I saw it more as like, because that was the one I felt like had the darkest romance. Or like just kind of the creepiest, I guess. Or like the author was trying to make it into something creepy that it wasn't.
Yeah.
The protagonist.
Yeah, because Henry Tilney is a doll in the book. The movie made him look like something else. But no, it was just about like the dangers of being a reader, where you just get so into believing a book, which I love that whole concept.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't know why I, like, interpreted that differently. I think it's because what I have always loved about her that I don't always see in other female writers, is and I think there's some female writers that do it really well. Like, I think Elizabeth Gaskell, Edith Wharton, and, like, everyone after Edith Wharton, because I don't think many female writers were doing this after her. But I felt like the Brontes and some of the Gothic literature people really had this thing where it was, like, a very toxic man, and they would over-romanticize him.
Well, I think that's also because Gothic literature in itself is about losing one's innocence in a dark, demeaning manner, which, like, people have different views on this, obviously, but some people see it as it's not about the romance, it's more about, like, the trauma that comes out of the Gothic thing. But yeah, like, for instance, North and South, which I mentioned earlier, it says it's a romance, well, because that's how she had to end it, but that romance is pretty much non-existent throughout the book, not until, like, the very last chapter, and I'm
It was more, I didn't get the same vibe. I guess it was some of the things that, especially Mr. Rochester and Heathcliff, because those are the only two Brontes I read, and then after that I was like, why does everyone want to marry? Like, everyone's always like, I love Mr. Rochester, and, like, over romanticizes him, and I'm like, he's creepy AF. Like, why would you want to be with him? Whereas I didn't get that same thing from Mr. Thornton.
Yeah,
like, I think he's creepy, but not that.
Yeah, but I think that's just because nowadays people don't know how to read 19th century literature.
Mm-hmm.
Gothic wasn't romance, because nowadays, well, sorry, when I was in high school, I don't know about it now in YA, because I actually want to read more YA. It just, I lost track of it for a while, and now I have no idea what the genre is, or, like, what the age main genre is. But when I was in high school, it was all paranormal romance, all Twilight. And within Twilight, it talks a lot about Austen and the Brontes. And so I think people then started to read the classics thinking these are romances when they aren't. And that's a theory I have. But no, Heathcliff is like, I'm sorry, I don't like Wuthering Heights. I know that's controversial, but I've never been so angry at people.
Yeah, and maybe it would have been different of how they were interpreting it back then, but I saw their vein of literature as being what really inspired then, like, the paranormal romance.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that sort of literature, when taken seriously, and they might have meant for it not to be taken seriously, but they did romanticize both Heathcliff and Rochester a lot.
Oh, they totally did. And also, Charlotte Bronte, pretty certain it was her, was a governess who fell in love with the dad, who was married. So it was kind of like a bit of a fan fiction of her own life, how she wanted it to go.
Yeah.
And also, okay, so my family is from where the Brontes are from.
That's cool.
So I've been to their home a couple of times, and I think it's really important to note that next to their home, across from their home, and next to their home on the other side were pubs. And it's very dark and bleak there. So I feel like there was a lot of mental illness, especially since most of them were alcoholics.
Oh, huh.
Yeah, because their brother was a major alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And they had a lot of mental health issues that weren't recognized back then. So I definitely think there was a lot of obsession and fascination on their part when they wrote their books.
That's really interesting, because someone I know did their thesis on the Brontes, and they tried to, like, I went to their thesis presentation, and they tried to say more. It was like they lived a very quiet, average life.
I mean, for that time,
alcoholism or mental illness.
I mean, that was quite common back then, also in that part of the world. I mean, it doesn't get that much sunlight during the winters, and the moors are very intense. So obviously none of us really know. I think they were all the daughters of a, whatever the Church of England's religious term is, pastor, minister. Pretty sure.
I think it has.
But that's how they were good friends with Elizabeth Gaskell, because Elizabeth Gaskell was married to one.
Oh, I didn't realize they were friends with Elizabeth Gaskell because I always place her slightly after them.
Oh, they were best friends. Elizabeth Gaskell wrote one of their biographies for them because they asked.
Oh, wow.
I forget, it's the one who lived the longest, the only one who like actually made it into middle-agedom.
But Elizabeth Gaskell, I'm not making that up. She was slightly younger than them or published slightly later. Like I place them like 1840s, 1850s, and then her like 1850s-ish, 1860s.
I'm double checking right now. Elizabeth Gaskell was born in 1910.
1910 or 1810?
1810. And the Brontes were born in Charlotte was born in 1816, Emily 1818, and Anne 1820. So Elizabeth older.
I don't know why I think it was because she wrote more about the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah. Gothic. She was very much a social writer, and which I just think is so fascinating. And that also bothers me because I remember watching North and South as a kid, which I love the 4-hour Masterpiece Theater version.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is so romantic. And then I read it. I was like, this is so much more than being romantic. And I personally love the real plot more than the romance. Even though Mr. Thornton isn't as creepy, you're right.
I agree. I think I appreciated the plot. Like I read it my senior year of high school. I think if I would have read it back when I was going through all the Jane Austens when I was in middle school, I wouldn't have appreciated it as much. Like I think it's something you have to read when you're slightly older to get.
See, and that's what I mean about the waiting game. That is fun because I know in middle school I love 19th century always, so I want to try every single book I found, but I'm glad I waited on a lot of them.
Yeah, I think it's fun going back and rereading them though, because they are kind of like different books. But what I was getting at before we went
sorry.
No, that was totally my fault. But what I liked about Jane Austen, I don't think you see, even in Elizabeth Gaskell or like Edith Wharton or other authors that I like a lot, or even in a lot of the authors of today or the rom-coms of today, is I like how she had like an actual like respectful romance that like had healthy boundaries. And like she really like, I feel like a lot of times Hollywood and books romanticizes kind of like the bad boy or like some sort of like unhealthy guy who is just like really not like relationship standard. And this is what girls watch, like, and like what we watch, especially females, I think, growing up. Whereas Austen, I felt like most of her male characters, but I feel like they're kind of more well developed and respectful.
It's funny that you say all of this because I was blogging today and I literally went on this rant. Because I remember Jane Austen was the first romance book I'd ever read in my life. Pride and Prejudice. And I remember thinking, Darcy was problematic for like a hot sec, but then he like recognized that he was being problematic and worked really hard to fix it, expecting nothing in return. He was like, I'm just going to write this wrong. And I'm doing it to help people, not because I'm trying to get this end goal. And then the next romance book I read, like after reading a bunch of 19th century literature, was Twilight. And I remember thinking, okay, this is very problematic, but we're not even fixing the problematic tropes. And we're seeing this as romance.
I think I like how you said, well, I thought it was interesting you said you haven't read young adult recently. I feel like in the last 7 or 8 years, it's actually gotten a lot healthier.
That's good.
But, yeah.
That was why I stopped. Like, I loved young adult, but I was getting really sick of the problematic tropes within it that we were supposed to see as love. And that's literally the only reason why I stopped.
Yeah.
Not because I thought I was too old, because I think that's silly. My mom loved young adult. I think it's great. It was just, I just couldn't handle another stalker dude that we were supposed to see as romantic just because he was hot and rich. And then there's another hot and rich person chasing after you as well. Oh, couldn't handle it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I was really enamored with a lot of those I want to say a lot of those, because it's interesting to say that's the trope that you thought, because the trope that I saw a lot was different.
Mhm.
I feel like it was more like Jace from the Mortal Instruments is what I saw a lot, or Peter Kavinsky from To All the Boys I Loved Before. Like really charming, kind of bad boys, dated a lot of girls and went for like the super innocent book nerd. And that to me was like, oh my gosh, I love that. And I was like looking back, I think it was when I was watching To All the Boys I Loved Before and the movie came out, because it came out when I was like 18. And I was like, oh my gosh, wait, this was all so problematic. Why was I romanticizing guys like this for so long? And there was never any sort of LGBT representation.
Oh, no, of
Never
course.
like color, like
Yeah, yeah, no, that one is also problematic, but the books I read always was like through, of course, the nerdy bookworm's perspective, and like the cheerleaders, the jocks, they were like vilified.
huh.
And so I remember I never gave any sporty person chance because I was like, oh, they're the worst. And which is problematic in itself as well, because like I don't know. There's just, oh, I guess some other people hate Chase. I never read those books.
Thank you for joining us. We've kind of steered away from Jane Austen, but we're talking about how Jane Austen was one of the best writers when it came to like actually making men that were respectable and like respected boundaries and like healthy relationships, whereas a lot of books and movies portray unhealthy relationships.
I mean, I can rant for days about this topic. Yeah, because I tried rereading this month some young adult from my day, and I'm just so sick of the love triangle in the sense where there's a girl going after two guys at once and then like can't make up her mind, and it's like, girl, if you can't make up your mind, then neither of them are for you. Like you just drop it.
Oh, the dystopian love triangles always got me.
Yeah, I think the last book I read that was young adult, even though I read it way after it had come out, was Daughter of Smoke and Bone.
I never read that one. I started it and couldn't get into it.
Yeah, I wish I would have read it when it came out because it would have been original, because it was one of the first to do all the problematic tropes. But I just like, oh my gosh, I could not get into it. Oh, yes, Bree, yes. I rant about this all the time to her.
But yeah, no, so that's what I thought was really radical though about Jane Austen. I feel like a lot of people miss, like a lot of people don't give that respect I feel like it deserves of like creating these healthy relationships, and also like women that could have lives outside of relationships too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's the issue with the Brontes for me. It was like the obsession, even though they are different genres, but I could not handle the obsession that they had for these men who did not deserve their time.
Okay, but the women were also problematic in those. I don't think they were. I don't think any of the characters. I've only read 2 of them, so maybe like other Bronte novels are better.
I heard Anne Grey is really good.
Huh. Okay, I'm probably not. But like, it's just like all the characters in those novels like made me want to like bang my head against a wall. Jane Eyre was the only one who was like had some redeeming qualities.
Yeah, it was also very obvious that like the ending of her going back to him was literally just filling a publishing quota, because I mean, I don't know if that was the case. That's just how I felt, where I'm like, why are you even going back? Like, there's really no need to go back.
Yeah, I will say though, I would have wanted some sort of closure of what she was gonna do, but I was really excited because when she left, I was like, oh, cool, she's gonna go out on her own, she's gonna do something cool, like maybe start up her own school or something. And then it was just like, wait, what? You're going back to him?
Mm-hmm.
It was like such a romantified ending. I was like, what? Excuse me?
Like so many. But another really good Victorian book that's not a romance, not anything like the ones we're talking about, but is Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy.
Huh, okay.
It's very trigger warning heavy, but it's very important. I I think it was one of the starts of the Me Too movement, personally, because it changed a lot of things, historically speaking. But I think they did a lot of the topics really well. And that's all I'm going to say.
Interesting. I'll have to check it out.
Mm-hmm. But Michael Chen is offering a lot of other good books. All by Steinbeck.
I've never read Steinbeck.
I've only read Grapes of Wrath, but I read it during the really traumatic time in my life, so I took out my hatred on that book. So I don't actually know if it's good or bad.
I'm very picky when it comes to white male authors.
Yeah.
I like Voltaire and I can respect Hemingway, and that's about it. I respect Hemingway not as a person. I think he did revolutionize how people wrote.
I have this thing, so after I researched Charles Dickens, because I really did love his plots and how they all come together at the end in that last chapter, and then I looked him up and then I hated him. I do get nervous about researching men after that. Like,
if you like Hemingway or Fitzgerald, never research either of them.
I read my first Fitzgerald book this year. I hated it. And the whole time I was like, you are just putting down your wife. Like, this whole book is just putting down your wife, and I cannot handle this. Like, I cannot understand why non-white hipster men like him.
He would plagiarize his wife.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I looked him up.
The diaries, yeah. There was a lot of stuff there. Hemingway was also he actually encouraged that in Fitzgerald because they were friends.
Mm-hmm.
Hemingway hated women probably because he was gay.
Yeah.
There was a lot of repressed hatred towards women.
I mean, it's like the picture of Dorian Gray. I remember reading it in high school, and I was like, I am 99.9% sure this man is gay, because there is so much women hate and male love that I just think that's what's going on here. Male authors I do like, though I only know, I love J.M. Barrie. Peter Pan.
Okay, yeah.
From what I've read of him, there's a lot of controversial stuff about him because he was asexual, but due to it not being as a popular known term, they made up a lot of rumors about him. But even the kids, because he ended up adopting the boys that he based Peter Pan on, and they all said nothing bad happened, that he was like very kind. He was just Peter Pan. And Peter Pan is a book kind of about asexuality, but the term didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
And then writing, I don't know much about these people, but I really do love P.G. Woodhouse. This is writing. And Twain's, even though Mark Twain's is a little bit iffy nowadays. He was funny for the time. It was still it's hard.
Yeah, no, like I said, I like Voltaire. I liked H.G. Wells a lot, although I think his life is very controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting way. I don't really know what to think of H.G. Wells, to be honest.
And also Alexandre Dumas.
Yes, The Count of Monte Cristo was so good. That's the only thing I read by him, but yeah.
And Robert Louis Stevenson.
I don't think I read him.
He wrote Treasure Island.
Oh.
And Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Okay.
Yeah. Trying to think. Those are the only ones, like, for sure I know were written by men, because, like, Robin Hood and King Arthur, you don't really know.
Ooh, yeah. I think it's interesting, even my two favorite, like, contemporary male authors, of them, they're both like Adam Silvera. I love Adam Silvera.
Mhm.
And he's like Latino, and then Neil Shusterman. I love Neil Shusterman, and he's black. So I'm like, that's weird that you don't like any contemporary white male authors.
The only modern male writer that I love is Neil Gaiman.
Okay, I haven't read him. I read mostly YA though, so I feel like I don't know. I just feel like I read mostly female writers, to be honest.
Well, with Neil Gaiman, the only reason how I got into him was in high school. Someone put his book in the wrong section at Borders, back when Borders existed, and I bought it thinking it was a young adult. Very quickly realized it wasn't, and I was like, oh my gosh. But he's one of my favorite writers, and I did have the privilege of meeting him, and he was such a genuine human being.
That's cool.
Like, very humble, and just he's really good. Like, if you were to message him, he tries to get back to everyone.
Wow, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Grapes of Wrath and The Pearl, actually. I think those are John Steinbeck novels. And then I felt the same way about Fitzgerald. His writing is immaculate, though. He's very, it's funny you say you think male hipsters like him, because I see it more as like, because like Serena van der Woodsen from Gossip Girl was a huge Fitzgerald fan, and I know a lot of girls who could fit that sort of stereotype who love Fitzgerald.
See, I never saw Gossip Girl, so or read the books, but I just remember when I was in college, all of the white hipsters, men who were like super rich, but they were like trying to pretend like they weren't. They would always quote Hemingway and Fitzgerald, and it was very much a vibe, and it still haunts me to this day.
At my university, I would say I know exactly who's going to say that they like Fitzgerald. It's like that girl with the fake blonde hair and the fake spray tan. And she's like, oh my God, I love Fitzgerald. The Great Gatsby is like the greatest love story ever. Leonardo DiCaprio did such a great job.
I remember in high school, I had some friends who started a lit mag, and they called it What Baby after The Great Gatsby, about like how there's a kid and then Fitzgerald just forgets that Daisy has a kid. Yeah, no, those type of girls in California don't read. So, I mean, unless if it's like social media, then they'll read social media. So I think it's also very much context, because you're on the East Coast, and the East Coast I feel is a lot more academic based.
True.
And the West Coast is very hippie artsy vibes.
Also, Michael, I loved Anne of Green Gables.
Oh, I loved Anne of Green Gables, Little Women, and Little House on the Prairie when I was younger.
I only liked Anne of Green Gables. I didn't like Little Woman or Little House on the Prairie. But
I mean, Little Women is kind of terribly written. There's a lot of reasons behind that, though, because the publisher made her change so much in like short amount of time. But special place in my heart. I mean, I loved Little House.
My mom thought I would like both of those. She like showed me the movies or like the TV show for Little House on the Prairie, and I just didn't like them because I loved Anne of Green Gables. So she was like, "Oh, you'll like these too," and I was just like, "No."
Should have read the books first. I read the books. I own all the books and the whole TV series, like in the box set DVD cassettes. I was just obsessed with 19th century. That's the gist of it. And also, Louisa May Alcott, who wrote Little Women, is such a feminist icon. Like, her whole family, for their time, like her mom refused to wear a corset.
Wow, yeah.
So, and also her dad built her a writing desk, and back then it was illegal for women to have their own desk.
Wait, was this in America?
Yeah.
That sounds like an American thing.
Because her dad fought for the Civil War on the Union side.
I knew that.
Yeah.
Why I knew that, but I definitely knew that.
But yeah.
In Little Women, they have a lot of stuff with like the Union.
Yeah, because oh no, her dad didn't fight. The dad in Little Women did. Because Little Women is her life, but her dad was kind of some people would argue that he was a deadbeat. Some people would argue he was just very artsy and going with the flow. But basically, oh my gosh, they're best friends. They're famous author. The Transcendentalist author.
Oh, Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry Thoreau.
Yeah. Like one of them paid for the Bronte's house. Because
Bronte's house?
No. Alcott's house.
I was like, what?
We're all transcendentalists together. So, but Lisa May Alcott's dad like didn't want to work and like couldn't keep a job and all this other stuff. So like one of them bought the property for them to live on.
Wow, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. I read like a little kid's version of Little Woman and didn't like it.
It's pretty badly written, but her other books are so much better. It's just
Thoreau, Emerson paid for it.
That was it. Thanks, Brie.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brie, because I feel like you would know this, but I feel like Ralph Waldo Emerson made more money than Thoreau did. Like he was, I think, a little wealthier and a little more well off. Whereas I think Thoreau was more because he had all those like things where he wouldn't pay taxes, and I think that he was a little bit more of a, I don't know, like not a stable person is from my study of the Transcendentalist.
None of them really were. Even though I love Transcendentalism, like if it would work, it's such a like a modernized version of Transcendentalism. But like, yeah, it's just so beautiful to read. But there's this case of no one really working or like being stable.
I feel like Ralph Waldo Emerson though, like I feel like he was kind of stable. Like he like did work more than the others. Like he was pretty wealthy and like was good at selling stuff.
Well, from my understanding, whoever created the movement, it's been forever since I read up on this stuff, was very stable because like they had the money and the privilege to come up with this dream. Because that's the thing. It only works if you have the money to do it. So I'm pretty sure it was Emerson.
Ralph Waldo Emerson created the movement.
Then yeah, it would have been him.
Yeah, like I don't know why, but I thought he was like, I want to say in my class we learned that he was like a lawyer or something, and like made a lot of money, and then all of a sudden just like snapped and was like nature, and then just paid for a bunch of other people to like write about nature and to think.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I love it. I love nature and I love art and I love people paying me.
That's the dream.
Mm-hmm. It wouldn't work, but I'm just saying, if I had that opportunity, I would take it.
Yeah. I think I see the comments haven't catched up on here, but I think Bree's also agreeing.
So did you bake anything for today? I'm sorry I called you out.
Did you?
I tried to make myself a pumpkin loaf.
Ooh.
With buckwheat flour, which is why it's brown. But when I was done mixing everything and all that was left was the pumpkin puree, I realized I had left the pumpkin puree and we didn't have any. So I replaced it with applesauce. And now it tastes like applesauce bread.
Not the worst thing.
Not the worst. Well, that's what we'll say.
Bree said, I think you're right. I'm trying to think back to my college transcendentalist class. And then didn't Thoreau buy his own books and fill his attic with them?
I mean, the dream.
He might have. I don't know. All I know about him is he was just, I see him almost like Edgar Allan Poe lifestyle-wise, but a little bit less dark. Like just kind of like drunk or like always like shouting about his beliefs and just not really like making money and like not realizing what he needs to like do with his life.
Yeah.
I think both him and Edgar Allan Poe kind of like that. So Edgar Allan Poe I would say is a little bit darker. Like Thoreau's like out in the woods, like just floating around, and Edgar Allan Poe's in like some sketchy pub writing at a desk.
No, he is breaking into catacombs to like visit his dead ex-wife. Well, his dead wife.
His cousin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He had a lot of issues.
I heard there's this girl who I follow on TikTok, and worst time to put food in my mouth. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. And she's a literarian. That's what she calls herself. She majored in English lit, and she's done documentaries on authors. Her particular emphasis area was Gothic literature. And according to her, there was actually no romantic relationship between Edgar Allan Poe and his cousin. It was just he married her, or else she'd like end up in the slums or something for that time. So it was just to keep her safe. But I don't think I believe that from stuff I read. But
he also wrote multiple poems about her.
Yeah. So according to her, those poems were about his first love, which I do know. So do you know who his first love was? Everything's messed up with him. It was his best friend's mom.
Oh, fun. I actually didn't know that.
They did have a relationship. But she died of tuberculosis, just like his mom did and his adoptive mom did. And his wife ended up dying of tuberculosis. But my favorite Edgar Allan Poe story is that when he proposed to his second wife, he proposed to her at her deceased husband's grave. So, super romantic.
Brie gave us her favorite Thoreau quote.
Mm-hmm.
Again and again, I congratulate myself on my so-called poverty. I was almost disappointed yesterday to find $30 in my desk, which I did not know that I possessed, though now I should be sorry to lose it. He talks a lot about poverty and saying that wealth is not measured in money.
You know that he was probably raised pretty well off. I don't know, but it sounds like he was, to be like, I'm so happy I can call myself poor now.
Oh, and thank you. Yes, I did have a video where I put cake in mason jars, but my roommate and I ate all the cake last week.
Ooh, what type of cake?
It was just like a holiday funfetti cake. It was like Halloween, and it had Halloween icing. It's in my latest video. It was called Books and Baking. I literally just baked a cake and then talked about a lot of books I liked.
Sorry, when you read that out loud, I thought you were talking that Michael Chen made that, because I was like, because I know, like I said, I watched your videos today. Oh my goodness. I'm just stuck in the 19th century right now.
You're good. Yeah, no, but back to Jane Austen.
Yes. I'm ready.
Let's look at, there were some other questions. I think we might have answered some of them.
I'm going to pause this while you read, so I did not.
Oh, what made you fall in love with Jane Austen?
I don't think I had a choice in the matter, honestly. Like, ever since I could remember, my mom always had the books on tape playing in the background. Whenever it was a rainy day or someone was sick or it was like the time of the month, there was a Masterpiece Theater Jane Austen adaptation playing in the background.
Aww.
And so I don't know, I don't have a memory of me like falling in love with her. It was just, I think every time I read a new book or I learn something about her, I just fell in love deeper.
Huh. For me, kind of the opposite of that. So I, like, my mom, so like my parents didn't read a lot. They were more like sciencey, mathy people. Like they just never read books. And I was like a voracious reader. And my mom was so worried because she was like, I don't know what she's reading. Like she just picks up books. I've never heard of them before. And some of them were like classics, and the classics can be inappropriate or like not religious or whatever. Because she was really, like, I was raised very religiously. And so we were at the bookstore at like Barnes and Nobles, and I was like, ooh, I want to read Dracula. That sounds so cool. Like I was just obsessed with reading classics, and I was in like 5th grade. And my mom was like, okay, like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then my dad saw it and she was like, no, she's not reading Dracula at the age of 10. Take it back. So my mom was like, okay, yeah. And then I was like, Mom, I want to read this one. And it was Persuasion by Jane Austen. And I was like, look. And she was like, oh my gosh, that title sounds like it's going to be very inappropriate. So she was like, I think Jane Austen's a little inappropriate. So she like apparently looked up like, what's the least inappropriate Jane Austen novel? And found that it was Emma. So she let me read Emma as a compromise. And like the entire time she was like, just make sure if anything like scandalous happens, you stop reading. And like for some reason she thought Jane Austen was like this scandalous writer. Like I was reading like 50 Shades of Grey or something, which is hilarious because there's hardly even any kisses in a Jane Austen novel.
Well, it was scandalous for its time. I mean, Lydia and
Yeah.
also Jane and what's his name in Emma?
Oh my gosh, it wasn't George. I know who you're talking about. I can't think of the name.
No.
Frank Churchill.
Yeah, Frank Churchill and Jane Fairfax. I mean, also, can we just like call attention to the fact that every perfect, well-listening, obedient girl is named Jane? Which, if she is really an INTJ, you know she was just making fun of herself and making her parents laugh by having that little joke in there.
I do love, though, I saw something that was like, every, like, the prettiest, perfect, most intelligent, like, most kind characters are always named Jane in, like, Jane Austen's novels, have Jane Austen levels of self-love. And I think that's really funny.
Oh, I like that. But that was really interesting how you, like, found Jane Austen. I love that. She's so scandalous.
I was like called, like I was like, oh, Persuasion, like this looks cool. Like I don't know what it is, but it sounds smart. And my mom was like, no, we're gonna go for Emma. Because she thought it was like the least scandalous.
I wonder what is the least.
It might be Persuasion, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might be Persuasion because I'm going through. Yeah, I think it is Persuasion. I don't remember anyone running off with someone in Persuasion.
I think that Anne Elliot was about to run off with Captain Wentworth and then like he left her. So
yeah.
That's scandalous. That's not like really that scandalous. And all that stuff isn't scandalous by today's standards or even Victorian standards. Even Enlightenment standards. I mean, what Voltaire, like Wollstonecraft was writing, or even Mary Shelley was a lot more scandalous.
Oh, don't get me started on the Bohemians. Oh, Mary Shelley. I just want someone to make, you know how Apple TV made, I didn't watch it because I had no interest in it, but I think they should have had that type of show, but for Lord Byron. It would have been a party. Everything would have been super scandalous. Like, I just think they missed a really good opportunity.
Jane Austen really liked a lot of their works. Like, she really liked Mary Wollstonecraft.
Mm-hmm. I mean, she was very feminist for the time. She never even got married.
Which is wild looking back on it now, because if you read her work now, it like doesn't sound feminist. That was because she was trying to appeal to men because they were the decision makers during that time.
Mm-hmm.
She would write stuff like, oh, we need education to be better wives. Like sometimes when people read it, like I've had some history classes where we read her, and like I don't think people fully understand that she didn't actually think that.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. Like people just forget how, well, not forget, they just aren't educated properly, not their own fault. It's like the school system's fault on how to read these books correctly. Like Romeo and Juliet, it was originally supposed to be a comedy making fun of young people and young love, but like now we see it as this great lament.
Yeah. Also, little tandem here. I'm wearing polka dot socks.
Oh my gosh. Wait, is it like, yeah, okay, that's what I hoped for. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it. I'm not wearing any socks. I don't read enough. It sounds like you read a lot, Michael.
Mm-hmm. Oh, going back to something you said earlier, that that message you got from that girl.
Yeah.
So many men who love Jane Austen every time. Like, well, I mean, all the straight men I know, like if we are doing a movie night, we generally watch period piece dramas because Jane Austen is so good.
I know a lot of men who have reluctantly read Jane Austen and been like, yeah, she's pretty good.
Yeah, I showed it to Henry a year ago. Which, because English isn't his first language. He's from Latvia. So, he hasn't read a lot of English classic books. And he was cracking up. He was like, this is great. And now he sends me Jane Austen memes all the time. So it's like,
Aw. Yeah.
it's good. It's good for everyone. My dad loves period dramas.
Huh, yeah. I don't think I've had the same experience. I feel like the guys I know who have read it or seen it, they're like begrudgingly like, yeah, it's good, like it's clever, but they're not like in love with the idea of it.
I wonder if that has to do with like the different parts of the country that we're in, because people here are very feminine, or like they're in touch with men are in touch with their femininity here a lot more than when I lived in Washington. They weren't as much.
I also think people my age don't like Jane Austen as much. I have a lot of female friends who don't like Jane Austen either.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't get it. Like it's so slow. And I think it's because people my age are very focused on like, they want a lot of punch. Like I feel like Gen Z is very like a lot of punch and like very in your face type of stuff. So people my age, I'm trying to think of like famous authors that people my age really like. They really like Margaret Atwood, or like just very like in your face type of stuff. I don't know how else to describe it.
Well, I will say the only people who like Jane Austen that I know read or watched Jane Austen. Like,
yeah.
I just feel like it's not just Gen Z. I think it's anyone in both our age groups, because everything's so much faster now. You know, so I think it has to do with whether or not you were raised on classics or old films, because I never watched new films when I was younger. And I didn't read books that were coming out until like in present day until middle school. Yeah. So I think if you're brought up on slower stories and slower pacing, then you just love it.
I would say it's that. I also think it's more they want the social justice in their face. People which I think is a little different than millennials. Like it's very like they want to read, like I think that's why people my age, like everyone my age is obsessed with Margaret Atwood. I think it's because it's so in your face.
Well, I also think
or Truman Capote are very popular.
Yeah. Well, I will say, at least where I lived when I was like in high school and college, that's all millennials wanted as well. I think it's more the fact that like age, like where you are in life as well, not so much generational. Because when you look at every different generation, I mean, we all love to hate on baby boomers, and rightfully so for the most part, but they were also the free love hippie movement.
Yeah, but I would still, and this is extremely biased because I am a Gen Z, Zoomer, I think is what we're called, but I don't think anyone has ever organized the way that Gen Z has. Like we organized Fridays for climate strikes. We organized gun control debates. We did a lot of stuff with Me Too. That was kind of Gen Z and millennials. Like Black Lives Matter is so heavily Gen Z. Like I just feel like we're really good at organizing. I forget how much we've like cost to the Trump campaign, like a lot of money.
Well, that's true, but you guys all have social media.
Yeah. So I think we're good at organizing.
But I think it has to go down to you had more tools than the other generations, because I remember my like I grew up going to like gay pride parades and all that type of stuff. So like, and I remember hearing about my families who were like part of like protests, but protests looks different in different generations. So I think it's kind of like money, you know, how like $2,000 in the early 1900s is way different than $2,000 today. So I think you have to compare like, well, with what they had, I think everyone did like equal amounts, but I just think you guys are able to do more because you have social media. Like I always tell my sisters, I wish we had social media when I was younger because the stuff that like I remember we band together to try to do, it would just fall apart because we had no way of becoming connected to other people.
Yeah. That's interesting, yeah. I also don't think there is something different about how our generation was raised because I don't think, and maybe millennials were the same way, but I remember like growing up, we would like look at all the climate change facts and I talked to other people my age and it wasn't just like in my hometown. This was kind of a thing that happened to Gen Z. And we would all be like I remember being in like third grade, second grade, I'd be like, oh my God, like we're screwed. And then our teachers would just be like, yep, and Gen Z is gonna fix it. Like your guys are gonna fix it when you're older. You're gonna fix this. So like the economy, like we were raised like as children during the recession and we were like, oh my God, this is screwed. And they're like, yep, and you're gonna fix it.
Yeah, well that was the same for me when I was a kid. And according to my mom, that was the same when she was a kid as well. She was told that like the baby boomer generation was going to fix all the silent generation's mistakes. And
my mom told me she was never told that stuff as a baby boomer.
Then again, I am from Southern California. And we are so my grandma's from Minnesota and my nana's from Yorkshire. And they have told me that California is a completely different vibe from the rest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've had a lot of protests here for a very, very long time and a lot of like feminist and environmental movements, even though Californians are terrible at actually being environmentally friendly. We love to talk about it, but a lot of them do not understand CO2 emissions. So
yeah, I think maybe it was just more widespread for my generation.
Yeah.
Like I just feel like everyone my age, no matter where they were raised, like there's just like this immense anxiety on us to fix the world. And then we try to fix the world and then the older generations yell at us.
Oh, I remember anytime millennials did anything, it was like, we ruined the economy all the time. When I moved back to LA, I was 26. Mm-hmm. And that means the college age kids in high school were now Gen Z, not millennials. And the woman who's helping us move complained to me about millennials. They're like, yeah, like my daughter, she's senior high school, all those millennials are the same, right? And I went, do you even know who a millennial is? Like,
I know.
So, yeah, no, we got a lot of hate, which is why I think it's ridiculous when millennials hate on Gen Z because that's all we got all the time.
Maybe this is unpopular. I think Gen Z hates on millennials more. I saw a funny tweet. It was like it was like a millennial tweeting, and they were like, I was so excited to make fun of the generation below us, yet all they do is call us alcoholics, so that we just get made fun of by both sides.
Yeah, no, I do agree, but I wasn't gonna say that because my sister told me not to say that.
Oh no, I think it's definitely true. Like I definitely think I'm like when I look at my millennial cousins, I'm like, what are you guys doing with your lives?
I mean, we tried really hard, but keep in mind, we were all in elementary school when 9/11 happened. We were in high school when the house market crashed. And then we were like starting off our lives when this crashed. So we've gone through a lot of trauma.
I mean, yeah, I think Gen Z went through the exact same trauma, but we were slightly younger.
Yeah. I mean, oh no, you guys did. It's more of like that age, you know how old you were when it happened. And it's just, I just think, yeah, because every side hates us. I think we should be looking more at Gen X. I am like, you guys, what have you guys protested in your life?
My mom hates Gen X. Whenever I make fun of boomers in front of her, she's like, what about people younger than us? They did nothing.
Yeah, see, That's the thing. Baby boomers, yeah, they're really problematic nowadays. But when they were younger, the free love thing, peace, anti-war, like really big on that. I don't know what Gen X did. I remember when I was in high school, it was like making everything more LGBT, IPA plus Q, all that stuff more friendly. We talked a lot about mental health. Like it was a start. You guys have definitely taken it farther because like you guys have social media. But yeah, like what did Gen X do? If there's a Gen X here, tell me what you guys protested because I am. And they haven't stood up for any millennials or any Gen Xers, so I'm just like,
Yeah, no. I don't know what it is of Gen Z, but Gen Z, I think the ones below me are even more wild. They're just very outspoken.
But also very against confrontation.
Yes and no. I think it depends on, I saw like, it was a joke. It was like Gen Z will not, like if their drink order's wrong at Starbucks, they won't say anything. But if someone's like doing something that's racist or homophobic in public, they will yell at them. And I'm like, that's honestly kind of true.
Oh yeah, no, I know, but that's what I mean. Like,
yeah, like
they're outspoken about their beliefs, which is a good thing to be outspoken in. But then like, if I talk too loud in a grocery store, my sister will leave because I'm causing too much of a commotion.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what? And then like, I feel like this comes with age. Like once you start working in the service industry, you're better at talking to people who are working in the service industry. But like, I know that like, because I have huge age gaps with my sisters. Like the younger one won't talk to anyone unless if it's like standing up for a human right. And I'm like, no, you have to like say hi to people. Like you have to make them feel human. Like, come on. They're working their butts off, being yelled at all the time.
I honestly think like people my age are very lonely because I don't know if we connect on the same level that older generations do. Like we're not as good at like my mom when we're in public will like make conversations and become friends with like random people out in public. And I'm like, how do you do that? Like I don't just like make friends with random people. Like if I'm like going out in public, I'm just staying to myself or the people I'm there with.
I think that has to do with not really having social media. Because you had to like talk to somebody. You didn't have a phone to like go on and like hide with. See, that's what I mean. Social media is a big player for all of this, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree.
This was a weird tangent. I'm sorry.
This is horrible, but I always joke that like every generation has like their drug or like their addiction, and millennials is definitely alcoholism. And
I don't even drink.
My cousins, they spend so much on alcohol that are millennials. All my cousins are millennials. I'm like the only Gen Z. They spend so much money. Like my one cousin was like, yeah, like just wait until you're 21. Like every single weekend you go out to the bar, you'll spend like $200 on drinks.
Okay, that isn't.
You'll be broke. That's what you have to do.
And I'm that's like, not my reality. I felt like Perks of Being a Wallflower was pretty close. So not, I mean, it wasn't a lot of, I mean, I never partook in this because I'm allergic to it. But it's not alcohol. It's the other recreational thing. That was really big with my age group.
Anyways, Brittany has some points to bring in. I feel like you guys are inspiring me to want to read more classics. I did recently buy a box of 56 classics.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
That's so cool. What? And I also think millennials are at the point where it's like, we tried. We just have a drink and relax now. I'm pretty sure my parents are Gen X and they definitely don't protest anything and often can be problematic.
See? I mean, I'm not saying that about your parents, Brie, but I'm just like, see?
And then Gen Xers are during the Gulf War and the falling of the Berlin Wall. But The falling of the Berlin Wall, that was like a very European thing. I don't think people in America cared about that.
Oh, also, I'm pretty sure they had, when they were in high school, it was the huge part of the IRA stuff as well. But America doesn't know anything about that's outside of their own country. So
Yeah, I know what the IRA is, but I don't think Americans would have been in that.
No, but they donated money to it.
Huh.
They gave a lot of money to it. And it wasn't good.
I always try to avoid people in public and somehow end up with 10 friends I didn't really want.
I'm one of them.
Oh, do you guys know each other in real life?
No, I've not met anyone on here in real life, except I did run into one author tuber in real life, and now we're friends.
Cool.
Kevin the writer.
Oh, that's so cool.
I didn't say hi to him though. We were just in the same grocery store. I just saw him. I was like, yeah.
Oh, so I interpreted that as like, and maybe I was wrong. I interpreted that as Bree's in public and she's avoiding people and then somehow like ends up with people coming to her in public.
Yeah, no, I will say that's a thing because I used to not talk to anyone, but then once I started working in like the service industry and I had friends who did, I realized just how nice it is to hear like, hey, how's it going? I hope you have a good day. So then I started saying it more. And now I'm friends with people like the cashiers at my grocery store. Like I'm on first name basis with like people when I go on a walk. And it's like, I did not need these friends, but now I have them.
That's nice.
Diane!
Hello, Diane. I hate spending money and going to bars. I've gone a few times. My choice is just to have a glass of wine like once a week.
Yeah, like I haven't had alcohol since I was 25, but it was really 24.
The last time I drank was when I was doing the sprinting with RP. Although,
did you drink, Angela?
I'm going to a vineyard tomorrow, but I'm honestly going, my roommate and I are just going, we're more excited about just getting our picnic blankets and bringing our books and like reading next to pretty scenery.
I don't think I've ever been to a vineyard before.
What?
I've never been to a vineyard before.
I've been to vineyards in Argentina and New Zealand, but never vineyards in Australia, but never vineyards in the US. Oh wait, I have. There's a small vineyard near my house in Ohio that we used to go get pizza at.
Oh my gosh. Are you sure it's millennials? Because in this chat, you seem more into alcohol than me.
Because I go to vineyards, except I was under 21 when I went to the one in Ohio, so I never would get.
The last time I went to Las Vegas, it was a month before I turned 21.
I've never been to Las Vegas.
I lived by there. I had a friend who was like really well off. I didn't realize how rich she was. And one of her siblings couldn't make it to their yearly Las Vegas trip. So I got to be the sister for it. And I was like, oh, this is how the other half lives. Yes.
I don't really have a desire to go to Las Vegas.
Oh, it's terrible. Don't go. Like, it was only fun because it was like completely free for me. And I was living a different life. But if it wasn't for that and high-fiving Shania Twain, not worth it.
Okay, I would say have fun doing chores, but that's probably not going to be fun. But thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. But I can't drink. Is it even fun? Like, here's the thing. It's not that much fun being around drunk people when you're the only sober one. It is for the first, like, 30 minutes because it's kind of funny.
No,
but that you're like, oh gosh, you guys are still going and I just want to go to bed.
No, I definitely get that. I went to the vineyard all the time near my house and just got pizza. And that was always fun just to walk around and like see how pretty everything was and eat good Italian food. But I always went with like it was kind of a trendy thing to do at our high school. Like go and like take Instagram photos and like walk around and like just eat the pizza. So I think it was more like I was with everyone else who had to be sober.
God, I'm trying to think what was the cool thing that we did in high school.
Anything that was Instagrammable was cool.
I remember when I was in high school, I was part of the beta thing for Instagram.
Oh.
I didn't even know what Instagram was. I just downloaded it, not realizing they were looking for betas, and I thought it was a photo editing app.
Yeah.
And it was really uncool if you had an Instagram. So, but I had one, and I had no idea why people cared, because I was like, it just edits your photos. And then 2 years later, I realized it was a social media app, and I had like made followers without realizing it.
I agree. With 30 minutes or so, you're ready to move on because they just keep drinking and you're like, sigh.
Yeah.
I've done some in Argentina and New Zealand where it's like a biking vineyard trip. And then I've been with people who like they got way too drunk and like they could barely bike, which was annoying. But like me and my like closest friends in the group, because we go in giant groups of Americans when we were abroad, like studying abroad. I really liked it because you would just like drink a little bit of wine to like taste it and like get the backstory, but it was just really cool biking the countryside from vineyard to vineyard.
Yeah, I don't know what we did for fun in high school. You seem to have like a very cool high school experience.
That was when I was studying abroad. I didn't bike from vineyard to vineyard when I was in high school.
Oh yeah, living abroad is a completely different story. Every time I did that, I felt like my life was way cooler.
I'm with you, Hudson. I can't rage, and I get really annoyed when people get too drunk. The older I get, the more I don't like the feeling of even tipsy, but I do love a good glass of wine.
I never liked alcohol. I liked being drunk though. I remember like the 1 year that I actually drank. Like not like drunk. I'm talking about that stage right before drunk, where like your whole body feels like the bones have left and you're all like flexible and loosey goosey, because I'm such a control freak and uptight. I think that's why I really liked it, because I was like, oh yeah, this is what it feels like not to be go, 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 go.
Yeah. Autumn's here. Hello. We were talking about Jane Austen at one point.
Another INTJ.
Yes. Is Autumn an INTJ?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. Oh my gosh.
So just a bunch of, wait, are you tall, Angela?
Not really. I'm average.
Oh, never mind. I thought you were. I was going to say just a bunch of tall brunettes.
What do you consider to be tall? Where's your cutoff?
I was always told it was 5'9".
Oh yeah, no, I'm not tall.
Oh, you look tall.
No, I'm like 5'7".
Oh, okay. So you're like the upper part of average. You can kind of be a Disney. You're 1 inch too tall to be a Disney princess.
Oh darn, that was really just my dream in life.
It was when I was a kid.
Really? Oh.
I lived next to Disneyland growing up, so almost everyone that like after they graduated high school would go to work at Disneyland. It was just like the job everyone worked at.
That's cool. But no, when I was growing up, my mom would always joke that I had like all these like really radical views, and she had like no clue where I got them, because like they never talked about like politics or anything in the house. But my mom said like even from like the age of 4, she would be like, "Oh, what princess do you want to be?" And I would be like, "The queen, because she gets to rule." And I was like just very into. I was like, "Why would I want to be a princess when I could rule the nation?" And then she'd be like, you would ask me questions all the time, like, why haven't we had a female president? And like, she would just be like, you would always like say this weird stuff that was like, we need more women in power.
I think that's very much an INTJ thing. Yeah, I used to get, I remember in college, this is the millennial era, so it's not like we see all this stuff online. I got a permanent F in one of my classes because I called out my teacher for not recognizing his white privilege.
Oh, see, now if you did that, the teacher would be fired instead.
Oh no, not back then. Back then, you did not do that, and I got permanent F that he wouldn't let me take off, so I had to withdraw from the class. But dude, was he not checking himself?
Yeah, no, nowadays, like, I feel like that's a big difference between millennials and Gen Z is, like, the university structure.
See, but like that's what I mean. It's like we tried so hard, and then we would get like demonized, like things that would affect our future more so. Where I feel like nowadays, if you do these things, I feel like you get more opportunities comparatively.
I think, and this is probably the Gen Z perspective, but, like, we see it more as, like, we create more opportunities. Like, we don't really take no as an answer in, like, a professional setting. Like, I was, like, literally all my friends have, like, 5 million internships. We all network. We all, like, talk to people who are, like, high up at the companies we wanna work at. Like, we're very good at, like, networking and, like.
I'm sorry, I'm not talking about it in that sense, because we had that too, like 110%. Like everyone networked and had internships, and then we complained that like we're not getting paid, and like we tried to fight it. But what I'm saying is like if we spoke up about like you're being any one of the bad things that you can be, we would get fired or failed, and nothing would really go to the bad people. Like no, they would have no consequence. But I feel like with you guys, if you call people out more than us, you'll get more.
I would say in academia, yes. I don't think in the corporate world that would happen.
No, but like in that sense.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I've also been the loosey-goosey drunk one too, so I can't fully occupy the moral high ground. Hello, thank you for joining us. INTJ. I heard the A, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I have the A in it too. It just means like assertive, and the T is like turbulent, like it could change.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure over the summer I was very turbulent. It's just like it's whether or not you're a hot mess.
Oh, I should redo it. I wonder what my 2020 self would be.
Yeah, because I filmed and I've talked to Brian Autumn and Diane about this quite a bit. I filmed an INTJ routine, but I filmed it when I was like really depressed and in like the worst mental state. So I was very turbulent. And I get a comment like once a week, sends that video going, "Are you sure you're an INTJ? I think you're this." And I'm like, what part of I'm turbulent do you not get?
Oh, I do look tall.
Mm-hmm.
Like 5'7's tall. Yeah, see, that's what I mean. Like, I feel like it depends on what your height is, what's tall and what's not tall.
Or the area in the world you are.
5'3" and 3/4, and basically a family of hobbits.
Because in Latvia, where Henry's from, I'm considered average height, but here I'm considered very tall.
I'd be considered very tall?
No, I'm considered tall here, but in Latvia, I'm considered average.
What? I was like, how would that work? You're the average height and I'm very tall?
No.
Got you, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where America would fall on that spectrum. I feel like probably more average.
I don't know. It like depends on the state, because in California, I think we're really tall. But then like when I would go to other states, because I was a flight attendant for a while as well. I've had many jobs. There were some states where I was like, oh, I'm huge.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were states where I was like, oh, no, I'm this is normal.
I think in Ohio, I felt like I was very tall.
Oh, so maybe that's like the tall there. Yeah. Where are you from? Is it Paget?
Paget? I think it was saying Jakes. Yeah, no, it's Paget.
Wait, I'm pretty sure you're from California as well.
California's a big place, though.
Yeah, but I think she's by me, or they. I'm sorry if I misgendered. But they were also affected by the fires, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The fires were really bad. I was talking to my friend who's from San Diego, and I felt so bad that I, like, forgot about this, but she was like, "Yeah, I haven't been outside in 3 weeks." And I was like, "Wow, like, don't you feel like you're being a little bit overdramatic with, like, the quarantine? Like, the COVID's, like, not that bad. You can, like, go outside your house for a walk or something." And she's like, "No, I couldn't go outside my house for a walk." And I'm like, "Wow, like, you're really, really paranoid." She's like, "Angela, it was because of the fires." I was like, "Oh, yeah, that was a thing."
Oh yeah, no, that's why like one, I didn't have Wi-Fi. But that's why I like disappeared off of social media because I just like I could not breathe or and because you're not breathing in fully, like you're in constant state of panic and it was terrible. Oh yeah, you're like so would that be like Central California? Yeah. How is the? I think you're
Pageant.
page. Oh, pageant.
Pageant? Yeah, probably like pageant. I was putting way too much emphasis on the pay.
I pageant. Okay. Yeah. So we're by each other, but I'm not gonna say that on the internet.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Interesting.
mhm.
I will be right back, but
Yeah.
I can give you the next question if you wanted to talk about it.
Okay, for sure.
Who is your favorite Jane Austen character?
Okay. This is a quick answer, but I'm gonna really stretch it out for this. Hello guys. This is my first time alone on a live. My favorite heroine is Catherine Morland for selfish reasons. Um, I think Mr. Darcy is the most intricate character, so I love him too. And then who's the funny? I'm gonna go with the funniest character. Um, so pageant. I just called you pageant. Pageant. So our area was we had to pack up our stuff, but we were told only to leave if we had like asthma or were chronically ill due to the bad air quality. But we were on constant watch for to evacuate, if that helps. But yeah, I don't know about you, but yeah, so we were like in similar boats. Yeah. No, it does matter what I call you. Oh my gosh. Like, it takes me a while to like grasp names, but my saying is if I learned how to say Zach Galifianakis, I can learn anyone's name.
I think it's easier sometimes too when I hear the person say it.
Yeah, that's super helpful. But I'm trying to think of the funniest. Sorry, when you were when you were gone, I was like, hey, well, who's the funniest Jane Austen character as well? But who's your favorite? Who's your favorite female and male?
So I think I heard you talking about how you thought Mr. Darcy was the most intricate, and I love Mr. Darcy. I don't know if I would say he's my favorite male.
Oh, he's not my favorite male. I just think as a character written, he's my favorite.
Okay, yeah. I would say one of the most interestingly written characters is definitely Emma Woodhouse.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because like when you read, I don't think they fully captured in the movies, but when you read the novel for like the first like 200 pages, she's kind of the worst. And then like, she has so much character development. Like it's just a very fascinating case study.
It's literally I know if someone knows how to read Jane Austen based off of what they think of Emma. Like that is always my like little, yeah, you know what you're reading here, or no, you don't. Emma always gives it away because if they go, oh, she's so spoiled and she's like such a mean character, I'm like, you do not know what you're reading.
Yeah, I agree. She's pretty sparky and nasty in the first half, and then she grows a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Mr. Collins is also pretty funny.
Yeah, I really like Mrs. Elton. Like she super bothers me, but like, oh, that level, I just really like it.
Even Mr. Elton's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. I like Emma Woodhouse's dad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you all have a wonderful night. This was fun. Despite not knowing much about Austen, but I need to go to bed. Thank you so much for joining us, Bree.
Yeah, thank you.
Snarky. I feel like Snarky works too.
Yeah. Oh. I do feel bad for Kitty.
Mr. Bingley isn't bad either. Yeah, Mr. Bingley wasn't really that bad.
Oh no, he was such a sweet guy. He and Jane very much deserved each other in every sense of the word.
I find it very interesting that no one ever really wants a Mr. Bingley though, or identifies with Jane.
Oh, I know a lot of people who identify with Jane.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And it's very odd to me. Because, I don't know, I just feel like every time that I hear someone say, oh, I'm most like Jane, I'm like, so you think you're perfect? Like,
yeah, because both of them are just so perfect. So I never hear anyone compare themselves to them.
Yeah, I hear mainly Jane or Lizzie are the people who they compare themselves to.
Well, everyone sees themselves as Lizzie.
Yeah, my favorite thing though is that growing up, I thought I was a Lizzie, and then I was watching it with Henry last year, and I realized, no, I'm a Darcy. And it really bothered me, and I realized I was in love with him because I was in love with him. I just felt like someone understood, and then I realized he is an INTJ. So there we go. That's me.
I go back and forth if I'm more like Mr. Darcy or Lizzie.
Darcy's an INTJ. Lizzie's an ENFP.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Just recently finished listening to Emma again on Audible, and it was so fun after 10 years of not reading it.
I love the Audible.
Oh yeah, like Emma in the movie. I agree. Emma in the movie wasn't bad at all. They really played down because I remember. I don't think I got that Emma was snobby the first time I read it when I was in 5th grade. I saw her this way I saw Sharpay. I was like, oh, she's so cool. She's so rich. She's so fun. Like, and then like when you get older, you realize more. It was when I went back and reread it when I was in 9th grade that I was like, oh, she's a little snarky at the beginning.
Interesting comparison. High School Musical with Jane Austen. I really love where we're going with that there. I never got into High School Musical though, so.
You're the Darcy. I love it.
It's really sad, but that is the truth of the matter. But I think that's why Darcy well, I remember Henry said, no wonder you want to be a Lizzie. Like, no wonder Darcy fell in love with Lizzie because he probably really wanted to be everything that she was. Like, not in like a selfish way, but like he really admired all of her, like all of the areas in his life where he kind of struggled.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to admit he was struggling because he's an INTJ.
Mood.
Hold on, I'm gonna grab my tea, but I can still hear you.
Okay. I'm trying to think what to talk about. I guess I'm trying to think of, like, my favorite female character because I didn't go over that. I guess I said Emma to an extent. I really like Anne Elliot from Persuasion a decent amount, and I like Captain Wentworth from Persuasion. God, it's so hard to compare them.
I know, they're different. I mean, that's the thing. We all have our heroine.
Yeah.
And we all have our... Well, actually, something I really like that Jane Austen did that I don't think enough people do. So the way how I got into Myers-Briggs was that I was trying to create well-developed characters, so I was casting my characters in it. And through it, I kind of found that Myers-Briggs that aren't compatible, they make them compatible for movies. And what Jane Austen did is that I looked at all of their couplings, and they're all actually compatible with each other. So it wasn't even like a dream romance situation. She like made sure the person who they ended up with
Was good for them, yeah.
Yeah, which is also incredible because that rarely happens.
Yeah. I like something I feel like she did that I've tried to embody in my young adult contemporary novels is kind of like two people who on the surface don't seem like they'd be good for each other, and then you slowly learn how they're good for each other as you get to know them.
Yes. She was incredible at that.
Yeah, I think because I'm seeing right here, like, Mr. Bingley's pretty cool.
Mhm.
I think Mr. Bingley and Jane were a couple that from the beginning they were perfect for each other, so I don't think that applies to that situation. And Michael is back, hello. But yeah, I agree. She also was really good at creating, like, intricate levels of story and just, like, really good character development.
Yeah. I mean she's known as the best character writer for a reason, which I aspire to be anything close.
Yeah. He would be a good, like, level brother-in-law to have.
Oh yeah.
Also a good guy friend.
Oh my gosh. Be an adorable guy friend.
And especially if, like, you liked his girlfriend, you know? And, like, you could, like, hang out in groups. Like, he'd be a good group person, too.
Yeah, but I feel like he'd also be that friend who'd be like, I don't care, we'll do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And that would get annoying.
I feel like he'd be a really good listener, though.
Oh no, great listener. But like you have your friends that you go to build you up, and then you have your friends that you go to like bring you into reality and like help you make a choice. Bingley's good at the first, Darcy's good at the latter. And that's why they make such great friends.
Agreed. I also think I really like how Bingley and Darcy kind of play off of each other. Like, Bingley's more outgoing, and then Darcy kind of latches onto him because that is something I relate to a lot. Latching onto people in social media. I just looked up Myers-Briggs for Austen characters. I'm Fanny Price.
INFP. The INTJ's best friends.
Really?
Almost all my friends are INTJs. I mean, INFPs. Almost all my friends are INFPs.
Almost all my friends are ENFPs or INTP.
Brooke is the first INTP I've ever met. That I know of, obviously, because...
Brooke, from AuthorTube?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know she was an INTP.
I think so, because she did the, I could be wrong, oh gosh, hopefully I'm not wrong. She did the Myers-Briggs, oh gosh, the Myers-Briggs tag.
We should get everyone in the AuthorTube community to do the Myers-Briggs so we know what everyone's personality type is. I was an IB in high school, and we did that. We went around and made everyone an IB take the Myers-Briggs, and then we created a list so we knew what everyone was and who was, like, compatible with who. And, like, it all worked out. Like, it lined up really well who was friends with who and such.
Oh, that's so cool. I made my whole family take it because I was interested to see how like parents influence their kids.
Just pick a restaurant, Bingley.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned about parents influencing your kids because my mom, I forget what hers is. It's the most common Myers-Briggs type, but it's like the one that's the least compatible with INTJs.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, me and my dad, everyone's always said that we're the same person. Inside and out, we also look very similar, and he's an INFJ.
My dad's an ENTJ.
Oh, okay. I'm the only T in my family.
Huh.
Everyone else are feelers. They're like so emotional.
But my mom's an ESFJ, I think.
My mom's an
They're like not supposed to get along at all with INTJs. And it's really funny because like growing up we clashed a lot.
Huh. Yeah, my family's just filled with an INFJ, an ISFP, and 2 INFPs, and me, an INTJ. And I took a cat Enneagram test, and my cat is an 8. I don't know how that translates into Myers-Briggs, but
So I tried to do the Enneagram and I've done it on multiple different websites before, and every single time it tells me it can't decide.
yeah, mine took a while, but I'm a 5 wing 4.
It wouldn't even give me, it would like give me a couple that were all like the same percentages. And I was like, so I guess I just don't have a personality.
Well, no, see, I got that too, but I just took the bingo tests on Instagram, and I was like, okay, which one do I check off the most? Because it kept being in between 1 and 5 for me.
It was in between like 1, 5, 3, and I want to say like 8 or something. Like there was like 4 it was in between. I was like, okay.
I don't remember the other ones. I just remember 1 and 5 because on the bingo boards, those ones were so close.
Elizabeth Bennet and Marianne Dashwood are ENFPs.
Mm-hmm.
Officially a narcissist then because I love them both.
We all are a little bit.
Oh, we just talked about that a little while.
I am not into the Enneagram. So I have a friend who's obsessed with personality quizzes, like made me take all of them. To me, it doesn't speak to me as well as the Myers-Briggs one does, but I think they're just written for different brains, you know?
I agree. Yeah. I think Myers-Briggs speaks to me a lot more. I think it's more creepy to me, at least, how accurate horoscopes are, because I don't really like. To me, I'm like don't really believe in like the idea that like your stars could like determine your personality. But then when I like look at my star chart, I'm like, this is me. Or like when I look at like what my sign is, I'm like, this is me. So it's weird.
I take everything with a grain of salt personally, but I guess that's an INTJ thing because they're the most likely to be atheists or like not believe in anything. Like I'm not just saying with religion, I'm saying they don't really believe in much. But I don't think I'm a lot like mine. But then when I get my chart read, because I have a friend who's a professional chart reader, Los Angeles, my chart's dead on. It's like this person told me like things that happened in my past during certain years of my life, and I was like, this is weird.
Yeah, it's wild. Someone's a bit of an ENTJ, but really mostly INTJ.
INTJs and ENFPs, they're like the most compatible.
A lot of my best friends are ENFPs.
I think we're all the exact opposite of our siblings. Are you an only child? That seems like I feel like a lot of more sciencey parents generally only have one kid.
Yep. Well, I think we're at the end of the questions, and we're at 2 hours, which is around when I end my lives usually. But thank you all so much for coming.
But yeah, thank you so much for having me. And don't forget to like this live because Angela Ann deserves it. Do you go by Angela Ann or just Angela?
So just Angela usually. Angela Ann's I feel like a little more catchy, so I use it on mine.
Oh, it's super catchy. I just didn't want to like call you Angela and then you'd be like, oh my gosh, that's sick.
Seriously, are we compatible? Wow. Okay, well that's good then. Yes, thank you so much for coming. Okay, so I'm gonna press end broadcast, but again, thank you all so much.
Bye.
Bye.